Hey friends, welcome to episode 457 of the My 123 Cents podcast. Once again, as you can maybe see, definitely hearing, we are doing this episode once again on both video and audio format over on the My 123 Cents YouTube channel. So if you are watching right here on YouTube, I appreciate that. And I invite you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, leave comments, leave reviews wherever you listen to podcasts. If you are listening to the audio version of the My 123 Cents podcast. Again, episode 457. So we've been busy and putting a lot of content, great content, in my opinion, out there for almost 9 years now. It'll be 9 years in December. And I hope that you are having a great week, or your week is off to a great start. I know if you're watching as the show drops on a Monday, we're off to a new week. And if you're living pretty much anywhere in the country, it seems like it is hotter than hell out there, and we are experiencing quite a heat wave here in southern Illinois as we are entering into I think 6-day stretch, they said, of 100-degree plus temperatures. So stay safe out there. If you are working in the heat, spending any time in the heat, check on your neighbors, your pets, your elderly friends and family members, and make sure that everybody is staying well hydrated as well. Now, I hear a dog barking. You may hear that from time to time as you're listening. I'm in a makeshift studio of sorts. You can see all my action figures behind me. So you're probably going to hear the dogs barking and then people yelling to try to get the dogs to stop barking. So I apologize for that, and hopefully it is not too much of an interruption or a distraction as we record this week's show. This week's show, though, is going to be kind of not like typical shows. I like to create content and put content out, in Reels and on TikTok and on even on YouTube with the shorts. And those kind of can restrict you to, 3 minutes on TikTok. You can do maybe sometimes 90 minutes or 90 seconds rather on Instagram, and then with YouTube, it's 60 seconds for those shorts. So this is a topic that's kind of been weighing on my head for a while now, and this past week, it really kind of exploded or imploded. I thought this is probably worthy of more than just a 60-second or a 90-second or even a 3-minute review or vlog, if you will. And so I'm going to take a little time and not go deep into this, but I'm going to preface this with, I am not an expert by any means in mental health, in addiction, drugs, anything like that. I can tell you just from previous experiences with friends, with family members who have battled addiction, who have battled mental health problems, and who are continuing and still doing that daily fight. I can speak from that perspective, and that's where I'm coming from with this. Now, I do have some mental health first aid training, but beyond that, not an expert and would never pretend to be. But really kind of what started this whole thing was sometime in the middle of last week, the news broke that Tammy Sitch, aka Sunny from, our days of fandom back in the WWE days, WWF days in the mid 90s. Sunny, the most downloaded female. I think she even beat Cindy Margolis on AOL at one point. So she was someone who wrestling fans and, I think the general population knew who she was, or at least saw her and and that back then in that era of sex sells and everything, people were very excited, men especially, and fast forward now 25 years later or 30 years later, and Sunny is 50, and she has had some issues, to say the very least, in her past. PTSD. She has said that she does suffer from mental illness. I think bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety were some of the things that were mentioned in the article that I read. Now, again, I've not heard any of this come from her, so I'm basing this on some news articles that I read, not wrestling news, but actual, news that I'm hoping is vetted a little better than what we see with the journalist and again, I'm going to use air quotes if you're listening, the journalists out there who are reporting wrestling news, because this is what kind of really pissed me off about the situation. And again, I am not condoning. I know that Tammy has pled no contest, but will be sentenced and faces up to 25 years in prison when she's sentenced in November. So she has accepted or is taking that part of the responsibility. And I know that she has said no contest. So I'm not excusing any of the behavior that led to the unfortunate death of someone that she was responsible for. And I do acknowledge her responsibility in this. And again, I'm not using this platform to excuse or condone or minimize the fact that there's a family out there that no longer has a loved one because of the actions that Tammy and the decisions that Tammy made when she got behind the wheel and killed someone. But I am here to say that we as a society, not just wrestling fans, I'm talking about all walks of life, we are quick to be judge, jury, and executioner when it comes to someone who has fallen from grace. And I think that a lot of times we put these celebrities up on pedestals, and we do that just so we can get the joy of knocking them down. For years, Tammy has been the butt of many jokes. She has been ridiculed, and one thing keeping in mind here is all of the problems I mentioned, the addiction, the mental health issues, the bipolar disorder. These are things that if she had come out and said that she was living with cancer, or she had diabetes, or she had a brain tumor, would we be making fun of that? Would we be ridiculing that? No, we have stigmatized in this country mental illness to the point where people don't want to talk about it. They don't feel comfortable talking about it. And when they do talk about it, we chastise them. We make fun of them. We make memes and funny videos, and we go on rants and condemn them for something that, as far as I understand, is out of their control. I don't think anybody wants to be born or wants to develop a mental illness in their lifetime, just like nobody wants to be born with or develop cancer along the way. Or, if someone fell tomorrow and broke their leg, they wouldn't hide that. They would go to the doctor. They would go to the hospital. They would get a cast and an x-ray, and they would be taken care of. And we wouldn't make fun of them for breaking their leg. But God forbid someone with a mental illness walks into a facility, a clinic, to get help. And then they're the butt of late night TV show jokes. They are, for people who aren't celebrities, they are talked about and whispered behind their back with family and friends that, there's, so-and-so is being treated for drugs, or so-and-so is crazy. And, we have to stop that mentality. And that's where I'm coming from with all of this. Now, because of the illness, the mental illness, because of the addiction, that then leads to these things that happen that, someone gets hurt, someone, in this case with Tammy Sitch, someone dies. But we continue to ridicule these people instead of being empathetic and providing the help. And I do understand too that help is sometimes offered, and it's not, you have to also be willing to accept and take that help. And so again, I'm not putting the person, the perpetrator, the addict, I'm not putting them on a pedestal and saying that they're untouchable and we shouldn't hold them to a standard, to a higher standard, because we certainly should. But we also need to understand how mental illness works and how addiction works, and not just jump to judgment, not just rush to judgment and say, that Tammy Sitch, and I'll talk about others here tonight or today, Scott Hall, Jake the Snake Roberts, Jeff Hardy, just to name a few, these men and women in wrestling. And again, it goes beyond wrestling. I'm using the wrestler perspective on this, or the wrestling side of this, because this is a wrestling podcast and vlog. So that's where I'm coming from when I talk about these individuals who all have issues or have had issues. And unfortunately, Scott Hall, we lost him a year and a half ago, but you know, they have dealt with these things their entire lives. It's not just a wrestling thing. I don't think it's a switch that gets flipped. It is ways of coping with previous traumas. It's ways of dealing with life. And I think until we better understand that, we need to just shut up and not be dicks or assholes about it and judgmental. And this is where I'm coming from with the Tammy thing that I saw the other day that really pissed me off. And I usually keep my opinion to myself when I see things on social media, Twitter, especially when it's kind of uh, semi-controversial. This wrestling website had posted a picture of Tammy, in the bikini, sunny, those sunny days where she's in a bikini frolicking on the beach. And then next to that was a picture of her in the courtroom in her orange jumpsuit, and she has gained a lot of weight. Her hair is gray. She's a 50-year-old woman. I'm a 50-year-old man now. I don't look the same I looked in my mid-20s either. And I guarantee you that these assholes who are making fun of and making the snide little jokes and whatnot don't look the same that they did 25 years ago, and they won't look the same as they do now. If they're young, if they're in their 20s and think that they're cool and funny and stuff, they're not going to look the same in 25 years. And that's part of aging, one, but that's also part of that addiction. That's part of that life of the drugs, the alcohol, the mental health issues. It ages a person and not gracefully. And on the flip side of things, if she were, you know, still looking the same way, but had Botox or had breast enhancement or had extensions in her hair or anything else, then people would be criticizing her, making fun of her for being fake and being phony and not being real. And it's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword. But we, as a society, wrestling fans and beyond, can help this by not ridiculing, by not laughing, by not making jokes, by not condemning, by not judging, because none of us are perfect. Not even Kurt Hennig was perfect. We have to do a better job as people at being empathetic. And I don't think you can teach empathy. And it's scary to see the way people react and publicly try to humiliate or try to condemn or criticize or whatever it is. And whatever the reason is, I don't get it. I don't understand it at all. But, treat people with a little respect and understand that you've never walked a mile in their shoes. You don't know where they've been. You don't know what they're going through. I don't know Tammy's backstory. I don't know what she went through as a child. I know that she had issues as an adult. I know she lost her life partner in Chris Candido several years ago. That can be traumatizing in and of itself. Not to mention the wrestling business, the way it was, the way, we've seen Dark Side of the Ring. And I've got some ideas for that in the future as well. And I'll hold on to that for another podcast episode. This week, unfortunately, is going to be a little bit on the gloom and doom side of things, as I kind of just share this opinion and these thoughts. And I hope that others feel the same way. And I get it. I've done it. I've laughed at the memes. I've privately shared some of that stuff with my friends, and I guess that does, to an extent, make me a hypocrite. But I think that we need to be caring and compassionate, not only for the men and women that we see on the TV screen or the movie screen or listen to on the radio or stream or download or whatever it is, but to our fellow human beings, to our fellow friends and neighbors and coworkers and family members. Just be compassionate, be nice, don't be a complete jerk. And I get it. There are people out there that just, you find, I'm sure there are people that find me insufferable and don't like me. And I get that. And I think that it's okay for that. But it's how you treat that person uh, people come in and out of our lives all the time, and it's how we treat those people while they're here, and then after they're out of our lives. Uh, Taking the high road goes a long way. But the sunny memes and the articles and the uh, I feel sad. Um, it makes me feel bad for her because I'm sure that she sees this stuff, or her family and friends see this stuff, um, and it's not easy for them. And this isn't being woke, and this isn't being well, back in the good old days. It's not like that. That's not where I'm coming from with this. It's coming from being a decent human being, and being compassionate, and being caring. And I would say this for Tammy Situ. Back in those days, I was a fan, but I was not like a fanboy. I was not a super fan. I uh, you know she was there, and I thought that with the Body Donnas, I enjoyed what she did when she was with the Godwins, what she was doing with the smoking guns, that whole little thing that went on. But I'm not coming from a place where I'm defending someone that I had a crush on, or defending someone that I thought was the greatest manager of all time, or anything like that. It's coming from a place of just being a decent person, being a decent human being. With Jake the Snake, we saw his life kind of implode in front of our very eyes. And how many times do we replay and talk about and watch that match where he is completely out of it, and incapable of barely capable of walking, but certainly incapable of being in the ring, and should not have been in the ring. Um, but we replay that, and I think he's finally starting to get his flowers for turning his life around, and working with Diamond Dallas Page, and getting back with his former wife Cheryl. But we need to do more of that. We need to celebrate those small victories, and instead of admonishing or condemning or making fun of. And I think WWE probably took a tacky route back in '96, when Jake came back to the WWF and was born again, and was trying to clean his life up, and obviously was struggling then, and doing the angle with Jerry Lawler with the alcohol, and continuing that. I thought it was tacky. I didn't like it. I didn't like it then, and 25, 30 years later, I don't like it now. And so, um, it's been said, wrestling is an escape. Wrestling should be a place where we go and escape our problems, and not be confronted with someone else's real life problems. We kind of saw that with Scott Hall. I know WCW had done some things, WWF, WWE, when Hall went back to the company in 2002, had done some things with him. And again, it's not necessary. We as fans know too much anyway about the personal lives of wrestlers. We don't need that stuff then put into storylines. And I get it that wrestling is entertainment, and I just think it's harder when you do it in a wrestling angle with someone who really is a recovering addict, or is really currently in addiction. Watching a movie where an actor or an actress is facing addiction problems is different than putting it on someone in the ring who's playing a character also, but that real life character does have a real life struggle with drugs, alcohol, depression, whatever the case may be. So I thought that was bad. And Jeff Hardy, he's had his share of troubles, and I'm not calling these guys out to condemn them. Again, I'm thinking that we need to do more. And again, I get that you have to want the help, and you have to be willing to get the help, but then we also need to find ways to stop enabling and continuing on. Jeff Hardy, for example, the first thing I think of with his addiction issues was that match in TNA where he went out to wrestle Sting, and how many times have we seen that clip, and we've heard about that story, and we've talked about that on different podcasts. And I'm not saying we don't talk about it. And I'm not saying we don't, you know, we need to start gleaning the lessons from these circumstances, from these situations. And then also ultimately help these men and women get the help that they need. Be more caring about their needs and not condemning and not judgmental, and because it does nobody any good in the long run. And again, I've probably ranted and raved a little longer than I should have, but I just wanted to get that off my chest. I had seen some stuff on social media, and I'm sure it'll ramp up again in November when Tammy Sitch is sentenced. And I just hope that whatever happens with that sentencing, and when she figures out what is going to happen with her punishment phase, that she gets help, whether it's in prison, whether it's probation, whatever she's doing. No one's going to be happy with this outcome. The victim's family, it will never be enough for them. It's not going to get their loved one back, whether Tammy serves 5 days or 5 years or 25 years or dies in prison. They're not going to get their family back, their family member back. But you want to see justice served. And, I'm not going to comment or share an opinion on that part of it because, again, I don't know all the facts and all of this. But I do know that there is someone out there who needs the help. And I'm sure that the family members of the victim need help as well. And so my thoughts and condolences are with them. But again, I think showing that compassion goes a long way as well. And I hope that anyone out there who is struggling, whether it's with drugs or alcohol or depression, anxiety, an eating disorder, whatever the case is, whatever the ailment may be, just remember that you are not alone, that there are people out there who want to see you alive, that want to see you thrive, that want to see you succeed. And there is help out there. And don't be afraid to seek that help. It is not a sign of weakness. The strongest thing you can do is remove yourself from a situation that is detrimental to your mental health, to your physical health. Getting the help that you need is a sign of strength. It is nothing to be ashamed of. It is nothing to be condemned for. That's going to do it for this week, friends. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Have a great week, and we will talk again very soon.